I'm not sure that 1971's Diamonds Are Forever actually happened. Of course, the film was made and came out, so it happened in that sense. But is it really part of the Connery-Lazenby-Moore canon? Or could it be a separation from the films that came before it, a divergent universe leading that version of Bond to one other film that came out far in the future? I will explain. Connery was out. Sean Connery had decided to retire from the role of James Bond following You Only Live Twice in 1967, leading to the selection of George Lazenby for the role in 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. As Lazenby was uninterested in reprising the role, the producers had to look for a new Bond. After several candidates were considered for Bond, David Picker, who was president of United Artists at that time, became adamant that Connery be brought back and that money would be no object. Connery demanded a $1.25 million fee, which was granted. And to sweeten the offer, Connery was promised 2 back-to-back films of his choice. Connery was on board, and Bond was out for blood. In On Her Majesty's Secret Service, James Bond met the love of his life, Contessa Teresa di Vincenzo, played by Diana Rigg. The Contessa went by Tracy, and over the course of the film, she and James fell in love. Bond's adversary throughout the film was Ernst Stavro Blofeld, his arch-nemesis and head of Spectre, a criminal organization bent on world domination. After a lot of cat and mouse, Bond is able to thwart Blofeld's plans by destroying Blofeld's facility. Blofeld escapes on a bobsleigh, with Bond in chase, only to crash into a tree branch. Victorious, Bond marries Tracy, and as they drive away on a mountain road, Bond stops the car to remove some flowers, serving as matrimonial decorations. Blofeld pulls alongside, and his cohort, Irma Bunt, opens fire as they pass. Bond is unharmed, but Tracy is killed. Bond holds her body in mourning, saying ultimately, "We have all the time in the world." That brings us to the opening sequence of Diamonds Are Forever. The film opens with Bond attacking and questioning criminals around the world, asking one question: "Where's Blofeld?" We move to a facility that, using plastic surgery techniques, changes men into Blofeld body doubles. Strangely, this version of Blofeld has a full head of hair, when every previous time we had seen the man he was bald. Bond dispatches one look-alike, but is confronted by the apparently real Blofeld and is held at gunpoint by some guards. Bond, thanks to a handy gadget, is able to get the upper hand and take the guards out. Bond then sends this real Blofeld to his maker by drowning him in a vat of boiling mud. Now he has avenged the death of Tracy. Or has he? Later in the film, Bond comes across 2 more people who look like this Blofeld, hair and all. They are behind the nefarious plot that runs throughout the film, to do with diamonds and a space laser. Bond ends the life of one Blofeld, seemingly another duplicate, while the other, real Blofeld, escapes to continue with the evil plans. Eventually, Bond locates this final Blofeld on an oil rig, a base of operations from which to control the space laser, which Blofeld intends to use to destroy the various nations' nuclear weapons installations, and ultimately auction off exclusive nuclear supremacy to the highest bidder. Bond, with the help of the CIA, launches an attack on the oil rig, stopping Blofeld and ending his threat. Blofeld gets in a midget submarine and tries to escape, but Bond uses a crane to catch the vessel and uses it as a wrecking ball to destroy the base completely. Blofeld, the real one, met his end. Revenge complete. But several films later, in the Roger Moore era, Blofeld seems to appear one more time. I say seems to appear because, due to rights issues over the Blofeld character, his image and concept, and the name and organization Spectre, claimed by writer Kevin McClory, Eon Productions was not able to use those overtly in the 1981 film For Your Eyes Only. What we got instead was someone wearing the same garb that Blofeld usually wore, with a bald head, Blofeld's most iconic look, barring the hair in Diamonds Are Forever, holding and stroking a white cat, which Blofeld was known to do. We never see this person's face, but it is obvious who he is meant to be. This "he who shall not be named" Blofeld is in a wheelchair, and seems to have been terribly injured in the past, either not yet recovered or permanently disabled in some way. From this wheelchair, he tries to take out Bond, but his plans are foiled and he is dropped to his doom down an industrial chimney. Blofeld is not seen again until 2015's Spectre. Since that film takes place in the rebooted Daniel Craig Bond-verse, he has no connection to the Blofeld from the Connery-Lazenby-Moore continuity. In that continuity, Blofeld never appears again after For Your Eyes Only, so we can assume that this unnamed Blofeld was no look-alike but the real deal, and was finally vanquished once and for all. Blofeld does make an appearance in one more film, though, outside of both the original continuity and the Craig continuity. This film is Never Say Never Again, released in 1983. Co-written and co-produced by Kevin McClory, using his rights to Blofeld and Spectre, this film is basically a remake of 1965's Thunderball. We see Sean Connery return as a much older James Bond, facing off against his old nemesis. In Never Say Never Again, Blofeld is portrayed by Max von Sydow, and has hair. He is barely in the film, instead pulling the strings behind the scenes, and orchestrates a plot carried out by top Spectre agent Maximilian Largo, played by Klaus Maria Brandauer. Bond comes out on top, stopping the evil machinations of Largo and Spectre, while Blofeld retreats into the shadows to prepare for the next attempt at world domination. McClory had actually planned a series of Bond adventures following this film, announcing in 1984 that Spectre would be the next movie. However, those plans fell through, and Never Say Never Again now exists as a strange, standalone film outside of any Bond canon. Ironically, it was established in the original edit of Never Say Never Again that Blofeld's ironic white cat had poison-tipped claws. When Blofeld makes a video call to Largo near the end of the film, Bond, Largo having already been dispatched, answers the call instead, startling the evil head of Spectre. This upsets the cat, who scratches Blofeld. Bond watches as Blofeld, screaming, painfully perishes. Both the cat and Blofeld's death scene were cut from the final version of the film to reduce its runtime. At the beginning of this video, I proposed that there might be two divergent timelines, two alternate universes, if you will, in which the assorted Blofelds we see make more sense and all exist in some manner. A bald Blofeld leading to another bald Blofeld. An explanation for Blofeld suddenly having hair, leading to another Blofeld with hair. Here's what triggered my line of thinking, and what I came up with to make it all fit. In On Her Majesty's Secret Service, when Blofeld is driving the car to enact the drive-by shooting on Bond and Tracy, his head is supported by a neck brace. Hitting the tree must have done severe damage to his neck and spine, and while he has enough mobility to operate a motor vehicle, he needs assistance. Then, in For Your Eyes Only, when the obvious representation of Blofeld appears, he also has a neck brace and needs a wheelchair to get around. He might be able to walk to some extent and maybe operate a car, but he requires assistance such as a wheelchair and brace to function more effectively. This seems like a direct continuation from the injuries suffered in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Plus, both versions are bald. If Blofeld also underwent plastic surgery to alter his appearance in Diamonds Are Forever, which included adding hair, where is that hair here? And why is he so spry and seemingly in full health in Diamonds Are Forever? It is hard for me to draw a straight line between older and newer bald Blofelds with neck injuries that runs through a healthy Blofeld with hair. This is what started me considering the possibility of an unintended alternate timeline, with the paths of two Bonds diverging after the death of his wife in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Timeline 1, which I will call Classic Bond Prime, starts with Dr. No and carries on with From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, and You Only Live Twice, all of the Connery films up to that point. Then there is the point of divergence, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Bond meets Tracy, falls in love, stops and gravely injures Blofeld, and finally marries Tracy. Blofeld, not fully recovered from his injuries, arranges and assists in a hit on the newlyweds, failing to do away with Bond, but ending Tracy's life. Timeline 1 skips Diamonds Are Forever and jumps straight into the Moore era. Blofeld is in the wind, his organization neutralized, and is further recuperating from the injuries he suffered. Starting with Live and Let Die, and continuing through The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me, and Moonraker, we see a Bond who has finished grieving, as much as can be expected. He is jovial and flippant, having thrown himself fully into his work, living in the moment, yet never allowing himself to develop a relationship again. He knows that anyone he loves will always be in danger, and is trying to move forward. He has learned a valuable lesson. That brings us to For Your Eyes Only and Blofeld's return. Bond visits Tracy's grave, perhaps on the anniversary of her death, which Blofeld would be aware of. It is also possible that the priest is in Blofeld's pocket and tipped Blofeld off as to Bond's visit. Bald, wearing his iconic suit, stroking his familiar white cat, Blofeld tries to eliminate Bond and fails. Bond has avenged Tracy's death. Blofeld is, once and for all, gone. Timeline 2, which I will call the Connery extension, follows the same beginning. All of the early Connery-era Bond films play out, bringing us once again to the point of divergence, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This is where things take a different turn. In Diamonds Are Forever, Connery is back, and his Bond wants blood. Tracking Blofeld down to his body double factory, Bond sees that not only has Blofeld fully recovered from his injuries, he has also taken some steps to change his appearance, restoring his hair. Then Bond faces off against two more doubles later in the film and does away with them as well. Bond believes that one of them was the real Blofeld, but he is wrong. Several years later, in Never Say Never Again, a much older Bond finds Blofeld, older as well, and still sporting his new look, hair and all, fully recovered from any injuries suffered in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, masterminding a new scheme carried out by his agent Largo. Spectre has been staying under the radar all this time, and Blofeld has kept his survival a secret. Bond stops Largo, but Blofeld is still out there pulling the strings and working towards world domination anew. Timeline 1 includes Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then moves on to include everything in the Moore era. Diamonds Are Forever, with its Blofeld with hair, does not take place in this timeline. Timeline 2 includes Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and continues with Diamonds Are Forever, concluding with Never Say Never Again. None of the Moore-era stories exist in this timeline. I like this arrangement. I think bringing the older Connery version of Bond into a divergent canon feels right. And I've always had problems with the strange way Blofeld was depicted in Diamonds Are Forever. Timeline 2 explains the hair, as Blofeld attempting to hide himself and start anew, and the hair remains in Never Say Never Again. Having Bond get revenge against an unnamed yet obvious Blofeld in For Your Eyes Only diminishes everything Bond accomplished towards that aim in Diamonds Are Forever. Removing Diamonds Are Forever from Timeline 1 allows Bond's revenge in For Your Eyes Only to be all the sweeter, especially as it takes place just after visiting his beloved Tracy's grave. There you have it. I've created a sort of multiverse for Bond, with a timeline split resulting in two alternative paths for Bond to follow, diverging after the events in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. In the future, rather than watching all of the Connery-Lazenby-Moore era films straight through in the usual order, I will follow this new pattern from now on. Timeline 1, skip Diamonds Are Forever and imagine that Blofeld never fully recovered from his injuries. Timeline 2, skip all of the Moore era, opting instead to end with Never Say Never Again, with a healed and resurgent Blofeld scheming away behind the scenes. What do you think? Are you on board with my multiverse concept? Do you like my bringing Never Say Never Again into canon, in a way? Do you find Blofeld's portrayal in Diamonds Are Forever, especially with the hair, out of place? I would love to hear your opinions, so please leave them in the comments section. Thanks for watching. See you next time.